Hi, my name is Thomas Cullen, and I'm a part of the Healthcare and Sciences group. And this blog post is about 3D printing and its medical applications. And some might be asking, what is 3D printing? And what it is basically replicating models in 3 dimensions instead of 2. A 2-dimensional model is a picture on a piece of paper, while a 3-dimensional model is basically a bunch of pictures stacked up against each other, and it'll represent a model in 3 dimensions as opposed to 2. And the way 3D printers do this is that the computer software will take a model and slice it up for the printer, and it'll send it to the printer, and the printer will print each layer on top of each other, very small layers, and eventually all those combined layers will create a model, and after it dries it can be manipulated. The first case I want to talk about where 3D printing was used is it was in a 83-year-old elderly woman in the Netherlands. She needed a new jawbone, and currently the technology is very outdated. It's all reconstruction surgery, and it takes a very long time, and it's not guaranteed to work. But what this woman got is that she got a titanium jaw structure printed for her using titanium powder, and that titanium powder was etched by a laser. It was basically burned into place, and as it was being burned into place on its way up, it formed a structure, and that structure is now placed in her jaw, and it was attached in around 4 hours, and that was about a fifth of the time that a traditional reconstructive surgery would take. And she went home after 4 days, which is also very impressive for that invasive of a surgery. And the thing that's amazing about this new jawbone that she got is that it's equipped with all the human anatomy that's required, such as the joints up here, the muscle attachment regions, and grooves for veins. Here's the artificial jawbone that was added into the woman. Artificial teeth will be added later, and you can see that it is designed to fit her face. And it might be hard to tell now, but this was formed using a 3D printer. It printed every single layer of this jawbone individually, and the metal that the laser heated up, instead of printing it, it heated the titanium powder, creating a solid, and that solid that the printer created is represented by this blue object. Another example of how 3D printing has assisted another bone issue is in the skeleton of a 12-year-old Chinese boy. His name is Ming Hao, and he got his second vertebrae 3D printed because after a soccer accident he fell, and he went to the doctor because of it, and they discovered that he had a rare cancer called Ewing's sarcoma. And this type of bone cancer basically made it so that the doctors needed to remove that vertebrae. And traditionally, the surgery, the solution to removing a vertebrae would be to replace it with a pipe-like structure, which is not ideal for growing bones such as in this boy. And it was not the best option in general because it's prone to slippage, and it is not conducive to mobility. And it was replaced with a 3D printed vertebrae-like piece that fit right between his 2 other bones. What was amazing about this other piece is that it had holes in it that allowed bone to form inside it, so that the 3D printed piece of titanium, same process as the jaw, would eventually become a part of his spine, and the bone would grow around it. Here you can see the vertebrae that was 3D printed. It was using the same sort of technology, and the titanium part that was printed was burned into place. It was a powder, and it was burned into a solid, and this solid was very articulate, so much so that you can see the grid structure inside it, and this allows it so that new bone can form around it and calcify the entire piece. And this 3D printed vertebrae will eventually become a part of this boy's spine, and it will give him much more mobility in his future years. The third use that I will talk about is less of a biomedical usage and more of a specifically a modeling usage that can be used by medical professionals to understand an issue inside the patient's body. An example of this is that it's regular practice now to 3D print a patient's organs so that the doctor and the patient can greater understand how these organs are shaped, and in the case of cancer, what the cancer looks like on top of and inside the organ. An example of this is like a kidney, for example. They will print a kidney out based on MRIs and scans of the patient. They will create a model of it on a computer, and the 3D printer will print it out with all the internal and external detail of the kidney and whatever is wrong with it. And this is great for patients because they can greater understand what is happening, and it's also even better for surgeons because they can see what the issue is and they can understand what kinds of challenges they will have to face getting to that issue before they're confronted with it during the surgery. Here's an example of the 3D printed organ I was talking about. As you can see in the model, the internal structure is printed as well as the external structure. And you can see that the external structure can be made to be translucent so that you can see through the organ to the internal pieces that the surgeon might need to reach. And the reason why this is important for surgeons is that they can prepare for the surgery before they reach these challenges, and they can also see if the surgery would be even possible, because sometimes there could be a blockage in the way or an eventuality that couldn't be predicted if they didn't have that 3D model. So there you have it, and obviously these are very basic introductions of 3D printing into the field. Ideally, in the future, a 3D printer would print out an entire organ. They would get a structure, a biodegradable or biocompatible structure of an organ, of a heart, for example, and they will print that out using a 3D printer, and they will put stem cells into it and just grow a new organ, such as a new heart, just from stem cells and a prefabricated 3D printed model of what that organ should look like. But that's far in the future, but it's completely possible. There's no reason why it can't be. And I'm sure with the demand for organs that we have today, not just hearts, kidneys, eyes, even larger pieces of bones, for example, I'm sure there will be a day when those will be majority 3D printed and not received from donors. Thank you.